All right. Good morning. Happy Sunday. It is, what is it? March 29th. So the last day of March, come in like a lion, leave like a lamb, whatever it is. It was still cold this morning. Anyway, I wasn't planning on showing up for you guys this morning, but I figured I got all my chores out of the way and I'm delaying going outside for another couple hours until it warms up. It's supposed to get to 11 degrees this morning. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to come down and work on some stuff. I know I've got a stream this coming Thursday, and that's going to be a bigger one because I'm going to start working on my station building. But I thought for this morning, there are some things I wanted to do with this little Rix kit that I've been working on, specifically building a base for it. I have figured out where it's going to go on the layout. It's going to go in front of my station platforms. I've got a weird little triangular spot there that I just need to fill up. And so what I thought I would do is I would work this morning on making like some curbing and some flower beds, etc., and see what it turns out like. So yeah, just me hacking away this morning, playing with some wood, playing with some knives, and playing with some concrete colored paint. Anyway, let me say good morning to a couple of people here, because I realize you guys jumped in. So RDGK, good morning. I appreciate the countdown this morning to get to the go live period. BN Ironwood, Steve, good morning to you as well. Brian Kraus Rails, good morning to you. Chris May, good morning to you. Hey, Curly Express, good morning to you as well. And off the mainline trains. So a little group of you in here this morning, which is perfectly fine. This is 100% just me banging away trying to figure something out. RDGK, 0.4 or 0.04 styrene. I'm going to go a little bit different than that, and what I'm going to do this morning is I'm going to use a little bit of my leftover laser cutting basswood plywood. I've got a piece here that is sort of sullied. It's a scrap, and it is the perfect thickness for what I want to do because it is about 6 scale inches high, which is about the side of some basic curbing. And so I'm going to try to make a base for this because one of the things that I'm trying to stick to on the approach to how I make this layout is I want to be able to take a building and maybe turn it. And so that there's actually like 2 fronts to it sometimes. And then so if I put these on bases, then what'll happen is that I'll be able to pick them up and move them around the layout as opposed to permanently putting them on the layout. So let's see what we got going on here. So first of all, the last time we chatted, I'd had the building walls painted, and so I just quickly put very, very brief weathering, and I did a little bit on the roof and put it together. This isn't done yet by any means, but I think it's starting to give a pretty good impression, and I'm happy how it no longer looks like the Rix building that I purchased, that blue building. So I'm happy with the change. Right off the bat, RDG talking about you have to prime this wood, and it's 100% correct. This will warp quite heavily, and I use this for all of my sidewalks, and so I've come to learn that. And so I will do all the fabricating this morning with you guys and get this ready, hopefully, and then I will go and prime and paint and assemble it. And so, yeah, what I want to be able to do is to create a platform that is maybe got some curbing around the edges that sticks out a little bit, and then a deeper front with, let's say, I'm going to try some flower beds or something like that, with some curbing and such. And so it'll be a little bit of fussing and cutting to see what I come up with. But yeah, I think that, I think for the most part, this is looking pretty good. Like, I'm happy with this. I need to figure out some sort of signage for it. And so I'll get that sorted out. I'm trying to see here if I can find my calipers. I can. And so I guess what I'm going to try to do is I'm trying to get the footprint of the building. I'm going to transfer that onto this. I'm going to cut it out. I want to cut out an area for some flower beds. We'll see how dull my knife is, etc. And just get it done. Probably just need to measure this off with a ruler more than anything else. Zombie Burgers is good. morning buzz coffee. We could do that too. So first of all, glasses have to come off because detail work. Good morning, Brad. We're just hanging out here. Going to work on building a base for a building. So we're talking 81 by 136, which is the base of the building. And I think I want to put just a 6-inch curbing, or roughly a 1-foot curbing, which is 2 millimeters around those side. And then for the front, I want to put a flower bed. So let's measure out. So we need to do the basic building will be 85 by 141. We'll see if my speed square is all that good. So I probably should elevate this a little bit, but maybe we'll just wing it here. And I said that was 85, so we'll do another 85 over here. Okay, so that is the basic footprint of the building with about a 1.5 foot bit of curbing around the outside edge. And so the hope with that is that that curbing gives me something to glue little vines and such onto. So then a flower bed. So along the front of an industrial building, if I want to put a little flower bed, you know where they put like grasses and signs, I wonder how deep I should make that. Is it like, we talking 2 feet? We talking 3 feet? Probably 3 feet, eh? 3 feet for a flower bed? Well, okay, so if it's 3 feet, we'll do 2.5 feet, which is 5 millimeters. Which I can live with. And for anyone doing the quick conversion math here, N scale roughly works out to every 6 inches is a millimeter, so it makes scratch building close enough. You can sort of fake it with that. Let's get back down to the crane shot here. All right, so this area here, this is the flower bed. And then I need a sidewalk off of the front. And if I do a regular sidewalk panel of 4 feet, that's 8 more millimeters. All right, so that would be the sidewalk. Most industrial buildings don't really have flower beds. It's more like weeds and dirt. 100%. I just want to be able to have a place for, let's say, scraggly grasses and vines and garbage to rest. So, front of the building is here. This is the sidewalk. These are where the flower beds will be, and this will be the platform that the building rests on. So to that point then, what I need to make sure I do is that I have a front path that comes from the front door. And that's going to come off the front. And then really the other thing I want to do here is I want to try making some recesses for the garage doors. All right, so this is the door, and these are the garages. And then this is the sidewalk along here. So really, I just need to get the rectangle sorted out, and then whether or not I want to hollow out the inside of this. I've also found with this particular plywood, which I have struggled a little bit with the warping, MDF would be a lot better. The basswood plywood is convenient to use because it's available on Amazon. It's really affordable. And the one thing I found with it is because it does have a set grain, it's quite flexible along the grain, so that I can change it around. I would leave it solid. I just mean an access hole if I want to add lighting, like I'll punch a hole down in the middle. All right. So let's see how dull or sharp the knives are. And I'm thinking I should probably, do I want to put a sidewalk around the side with the, I think I'm going to. I think I'm going to add a sidewalk around the side with the garage doors, which is another 8. All right, and before I go any further, let's just make sure that these are square, because that'll be, they look pretty square, but let's make sure. They're not quite square. They're off by 0.5 millimeter. Okay. Where are the personnel doors? And so there's one right on the face. There are none on the side. There's one on the other side here. That's where the smoke breaks happen. And there's actually none on the back. Yeah, I suppose I could. I'm going to let this one just sort of drop off. I'm probably going to maybe, this will never be seen, so I'm not going to worry about that. And the other thing is that the building, I want to tuck it in against one of the retaining walls. And so I'm going to keep it pretty minimal here. So that we're going to talk about their main traffic doors being the front door and these 2 bay doors, and this is sort of going to be the neglected. And that doesn't even matter. You'll never see that one. Yeah. Actually, maybe what I could do is I could put a landing pad there. I can just cut something and put it on. In fact, I think that's what we'll do. All right. So let me get this knocked out. That way I don't have to have this sheet of plywood here. I'm worried this is going to give a splintered edge if I don't cut through it cleanly. All right, clean enough. I'll sand that up. Ah, gotcha. Okay, there we go. Don't dip your paintbrush in your coffee. Hopefully I'm not going to be painting for a bit this morning. Okay, so do a bit of a test fit here. So that goes on roughly like that. So there's the front sidewalk with the flower beds, we're going to call them, and then the side here, and then I will knock those down a little bit with some sandpaper. Okay, so next let me get these edges cleaned up. Okay, so that's the base. So I suppose I have to consider the fact that the flower beds aren't going to go all the way to the edge, so I need to sort of figure out some sort of curbing distance. Let's do 2 feet, so that's 4 millimeters. Right. Okay. And let's start knocking these down. I typically, or very traditionally, have worked a lot with styrene. I'm actually a little more comfortable working with styrene, but admittedly, the ITLA kit that I put together a couple weeks ago reminded me that sometimes wood is a little more forgiving. And I think I also mentioned on another stream that I wanted to spend a little more time being a little more analog, which means that stuff like this, like scratch building, just whatever I have laying around, is a nice change. I certainly could have dropped this, I could have measured this out and dropped this into the laser cutter and taken care of it that way, but I decided that this would be a little more fun. So I was watching Chris's live stream from GVO After Dark, or his kit build last night, and he had put a question out there, or at least a poll, about 3D printer versus laser cutter, and I wanted to weigh in and offer up my opinion, which is laser cutter. I got my 3D printer really at the beginning of the pandemic. I picked up an Ender 3 Pro. It was very affordable at the time, and I was super happy because I, made a puppy or something. And then I've had a lot of success using it to build a lot of things for the layout. Specifically, the girders for my Union Station. That was the perfect use of that printer, and really that one project alone kind of paid for the printer itself. But what I would say is that the time it takes to design a 3D part and print it, although it turns out good, is a little bit high, and I think I've said in the past that that stops from being able to enjoy doing the tactile part. Spending a few hours at the laptop in order to print something out isn't the same as just sitting down and mucking about. And so the laser printer, or the laser cutter I mean, knocks out basic shapes that you still need to assemble. Is the printer resin or FDM? FDM printer. I bought a resin printer a year later. I used it twice and I gave it away. The smell is terrible. I find that it is messy. I think that it needs a lot more fussing than an FDM printer. An FDM printer you can set up right beside you. In fact, it's up beside my little home office. It sits right beside me. It runs, it's quiet, it doesn't smell, it's not toxic, and when it's done, it's done. It's not as detailed as the resin printer. It's not as fast as the resin printer. But I'm happy to trade that off for safe, smellless, and non-toxic. All right. Back to business. So I've scored out lengthwise. I'm just going to freehand in the ends here, and then I'm going to slowly work on knocking these out. Now I have a slightly sharper knife over here. And I'm thinking what I might do is I might put a bit of printer paper where these flower beds used to be and actually fill it up with some, maybe some ballast or something, so it's got a bit of a flower bed texture to it. Or, as we said, an industrial abandoned wasteland flower plot. I think this knife is actually sharper. Actually, I think both of these knives are dull. Almost there. Come on. Okay, and so that will sit right in front of that. That works out okay. So let's get the other one knocked in there. All right. Bit of a cleanup, and then these are done. Chris Scott, you know where that building's going to go on your layout? Yeah, although it's not helpful for me to say over there, there is a small triangular section, sort of a strange little spot in front of my passenger platforms. And what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to add this building to it. And so that building sort of exists on the wrong side of the tracks, if you will. And I saw some pictures even just this morning where they take concrete, I'm going to call them barricade blocks, the large bale-like blocks, and they stack them and they fill them with gravel and wood chips and sand and such. And so I'm going to turn this into probably some sort of maybe like municipal maintenance building, you know, where there's ties and a bunch of rails left over and barrels, maybe a couple abandoned cars. And so effectively, when you're on the viewing side of the layout, it's like you are on the wrong side of the tracks. The city is the good side, which is the backdrop, and you're on the rotten side. So a maintenance shed and a bunch of other sort of crufty things hanging out there. A little bit of filing. Good morning, Will's O Scale. Good morning, Will's O Scale. Would I ever do O Scale? I did actually, during the pandemic. I wondered about it, because it'd be a nice change of pace in order for the detail work. But the truth is right now, I prefer what I'm working with right now in terms of N Scale because it allows me to do larger scenes in smaller spaces. I was visiting a 3-rail layout the weekend before last. I went and visited Trackside Mike at his club. And there is something really appealing about the heft and weight of larger scales. But as said, for me, I'm going to probably stick to N scale, and if ever my eyesight or my abilities start to fade, I will probably move to HO scale at that point. All right. Yeah, and I mean, I'm very fortunate to the point, this is big. I'm fortunate because I've got a great little space here in my basement I can work for a layout, and it's the perfect size for, the room is big enough to make N scale work. It would be a really cramped little space for any other scale, particularly HO scale or larger, for what I want to do, which is to sort of watch trains run. So it's not that it's out of the scale. This room is, I'm grateful I've got a room I can use. It just wouldn't be the right size for anything bigger in the way that I wanted to run it. So I've just scored out 2 areas where the garage door is, and I'm going to try to take a file and run that down a little bit so it slopes into the ground. Chris Scott, I watched your video yesterday. You weathered the station support beams. Yeah, I finally have that little project behind me. I think I'd sort of mentioned that it's been a little while coming to get to that point. Okay, I need a file here. Do I have something that'll work? Got a saber saw. I was hoping for something a little more aggressive. Let me see if I can't actually sort of slope this out with the knife. Oh, that'll work fine. Max Horner, good morning. Just listening to, watching exams. Well, I'll try to take you on a journey here. Good luck with exams. I assume that we're getting near semester end at this point. Or I guess that's actually more towards May. So would this be midterm sort of stuff we're working on right now then? Okay, so I don't know if that's, Greetings from Ireland. Well, good, I guess, are you 8 hours ahead of us right now? So is it like 8 o'clock in the evening, 10 o'clock, or 9 o'clock in the evening in Ireland? Good morning to you. Good morning or good evening to you, either way. For anyone just sort of jumping in at this point, this was just sort of an unplanned little thing to do this morning. Before I get on to the rest of my day, I started working on this little building on the last little stream that I did, I guess a week ago, and I painted it a new color. I got it figured out how I wanted to put it together. Since then, I've finished up the assembly. It's not done by any means, and what I decided was I want to be able to semi-permanently attach it to the layout, and so I'm working on building up a platform for it so that I can add weeds and vines, but it's still standalone. And these slots in the front are going to be for, let's say, flower beds. For me, the final exams are coming up at the beginning, yes, beginning, right. Well, best of luck to you. Okay, so then I've got these two little ramps notched out here. Let's see if they... I think you can sort of see right along this edge here. So the idea is that anything that drives out of the shed can drive flat. I hear that you can add lighting in your buildings for nighttime effect. Oh, absolutely. Lighting is a huge part of this particular hobby. I just sort of get exhausted thinking about it, to be honest. Because a lot of lighting requires one thing, which is for me to get under the layout and sort of bump around and bump my head and try to figure out how to do it. And some people have excellent solutions to this. I'm just not there yet. It's too slow, and the nighttime running thing, I'm not there yet. One of the things that, to that point, is I don't know if you can see, but I do have blue lights down here, and so I can kill all of the white lights and turn it into a room that's bathed with blue light. And one of my favorite channels, YouTube channels that I like to watch, is something called Atmos Seeker. And he comes from RPG, Dungeons and Dragons, tabletop wargaming sort of things. But what he does is that he uses a lot of atmosphere. So he does things like smoke and fog and projectors. And so definitely I want to be able to sort of have moving dark light. I've thought about this quite a bit. And so I can do a nighttime scene in a room that is effectively bathed in blue and a little bit of, let's say, magenta or green. And then absolutely have some lighting. I mean, I've got my Aldershot station, is all wired and has all the LEDs in it. And I found a nice voltage converter that you can take anything from 0 to 50 volts and then turn it into between 3 and 12 volts output. And this was sort of the missing piece for me. So now that I can take any one of my old, we've got hundreds of different chargers, from USB to different power blocks. And so now what I can do is I can just set them up in a zone, put these little power inverters on them, which are a 3-pack for $16. And now I've got dedicated power for each of those zones. So a little more affordable and straightforward to wire. Right now I'm just running forward with trying to get more buildings on the layout before I get into the, we'll call it the fussing of light. Anyway, let me get this sanded down. Okay. I think that seems pretty good. As I sand into my coffee cup at this point. Okay. So, next thing I want to do is I want to create my fake flower beds. I think that's what I want to do. So, I've got the platform cut out. One last test fit. Oh, I know what I need to do. Yeah, those line up exactly how I want. I need to add a little landing pad out here, as per the suggestion. And you know what? A piece of this will work just fine. Let's see if I can lazy cut this. Patrick Hill Station, loved your Union Station video and the frames look terrific. Thank you very much. I started that project at least a few years ago, and the interesting thing about the project was that it was for the layout that I had before this one, the one that I tore out about 16 or 18 months ago. And that's when I started thinking about Union Station as a scale version that would have to be 1/3 the actual size and would still have been 4 feet long. And since then, I've changed the layout, and now my Union Station is going to be this big. And it's going to be out of a kit, and I'm going to start kit bashing it actually this Thursday night. So this Thursday night is when I'm going to start taking a look at how to pull that building apart, and then we're going to start in on the roof. So that's where that one's going to begin. All right. So when the building's on here, the good suggestion was that just a little pad hanging out the back here something about like, let's say like that, which you can't see. Patrick Hill Station, I was at Union Station a while back and it looks just like your model. Thank you very much. The car barn. Those overhead steel girders are historically protected. And so when they renovated the station, within the last 10 years, I think it was, or maybe it was 15 years ago, maybe it was 10 years ago, they had to do everything to preserve. Have you seen the P42 DC? I have, oh, so I certainly have the Love the Way wrap. I've got a selfie actually of me standing with that particular train. And I would love to do one with the P42. Yeah, the P42s, I've had this discussion with Krauss Rails. The P42 is my favorite engine, and they're pulling them all off the road. So, yeah, we're going to not see them anymore. I'm sure Amtrak will continue to run theirs, but my understanding is that Via Rail is slowly going to phase out the P42, and the Love the Way wrap is my favorite. To that point, I didn't necessarily realize they were wraps. Having been up beside the engine, you can actually see the whole heritage paint scheme with sort of like the yellow spray down the side and everything underneath it. Like your fingernail can touch it. So they just literally shrink wrapped Love the Way on top of it. They didn't even paint the nose. The whole thing is a wrap. All right, I need a sheet of paper, printer paper. What do we got here? Do I have something I can use? My wife and soul to CN, yep. All right, so I've got a little bit of paper here. All right, first of all, I've got to make some clean space here. All right. So that's going to go on roughly like that's fine. And then this little guy is going to go over here as a step off, which is great. And I'm not going to wear, oh, I should probably do this one as well. Mac Irvine, all of the new Venture Charger sets are wrapped, not painted. Okay, I mean, I think it makes sense. I think I'm just adding a little ramp back here as well. I suppose the wrap is more durable. Probably a little easier to do too. Maybe a bit deeper, and then let's move on to the fun stuff. Okay. All right, let's get a spot cleaned out here. All right, so let me try to find a clean edge. This is a clean edge. So what I want to do is I want to get this lined up as it should be, and I want to set up this little step off of this side building here. And so even though it's a little bit out of view, take a little bit of my super thin super glue, and I'm just going to attach it straight to the paper first, and then flood around it on the paper. And it'll soak down between the seams, and the paper will keep it in place. And then when I cut it out, All right, that's out of the way. I know. I mean, I know Peter are phase out because they seem to, but I kind of wish Bachman would do a DC. Chris Scott. Listen, I would love the P42s and Love the Way. And as for Bachman, I'm afraid I'll never get a Charger set because I simply can't afford that. All right. We're tracking pretty good here. So, that little tab, the paper underneath it, soaked up all of that super thin, super glue. And so it's latched on there. And I'll trim the paper off in a second, but I want to create the flower beds. And what I'm thinking about doing is I'm going to fill these voids with a bit of ballast, glue it all in place. And what that'll do is that it'll give me the texture that I can paint over later. All right, so let's get, so again, this goes on here. I think that'll be perfect. So let me get a bit of ballast and fuss with that. Good morning, Dave, Mr. Stormy Rails Production, Stormy Sky Rail Productions. A little bit more than that. So let's see. This may not work out to be the best idea, but we're going to go for it anyway. Okay, so I've got these ready little flower beds, we'll call them. Now I have a bit of ballast in them to make them look like something. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to flood it full of super glue and fuse those in place. We'll wait a couple seconds because this will maybe start smoking. Let that sit for a second. Chris Scott, I saw a repeated announcement that they are releasing the Go Transit new cab cars in LRC and N Scale after HO are done. They're going to release the cab cars. Oh my. So I've been going back and forth about the LRC engines. So I've been collecting the LRC passenger cars, the club cars, and I started collecting them after they were originally released, and I've been able to get a bunch of them, and I have a pre-order for the next round. I got the business paint schemes. So with the LRCs, I definitely want at least one LRC engine. I'm sort of tempted to do two, but then they also had, I think it's the demonstrator set, which is gray with an orange nose on it, and I have to admit that is right up my alley. I would love to see that as sort of like my local commuter train. Over at Union Station, there is the UP Express, the Up Express, which actually goes to the airport, and it's a 2 or 3 car sort of Japanese engine set, and that's cool, and it'd be neat to model it, but I would love to just sort of one for one swap that out with the LRC demonstrator. The problem is that all these things cost money. Now, I did not see that they were going to release the cab car for Go Transit, so I'll have to also get at least one of those. I'll have 2 of those. Good morning, George from Glasgow. So, good morning to me. So again, is it maybe 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night for you? Are you 6, 7, 8 hours ahead of us? I think ahead of us, yeah. Okay, so what do we got going on back down here? So, 5 hours. Oh, okay, so not horrendous. So I've got the 2 channels then filled up with some ballast to look like ruddy flower beds and the base. So what I'm going to quickly do is I'm going to trim off any of this excess paper to keep it nice and clean. All right. So that's the base for the building. Oh, that doesn't look great. Let's cut that down. And so since there's time, all right, let's get this painted. First coat of paint. I'll paint the top first, and then I'm going to come back and I'll paint the bottom to take the warp out of it in case it wants to warp. But before we do that, let's get a bit of oh, there was ballast in that cap. Oh, you fool. All right, well, we'll vacuum that up later. Well done. Okay, clean up the junk. Glue away. Okay, so that goes on like that. Let me see if I can't line this up for you a little bit better. So there's now the front of the building with the 2 sort of weed beds that they're going to use, and that way I can put like some little shrubs and things in there along the front of the building. I think that'll look pretty decent. Let me get this all concreted up. Let's see what we have. I have ballast all over me. Oh boy. Fog gray, regular gray. I want to keep this a little more tan. Suede, fog gray. We'll just start with that. So that's fog gray. Suede, which sort of is the go-to color that I use here for the standard concrete color on the layout. You can see there, well, you can't see anything because the white balance is. All right, so let's get these. There's a method to this. All right, and then I'm going to take a blender. Let me get a scrap piece of paper here, or a scrap piece of foam core. Okay, I'll let that dry, and one more touch up after that. How are we doing here? 10:51. So am I to assume then that Mac, Patrick, and George are all from overseas hanging out at the same time here? Thinking about the LRCs. I wanted to... Oh, Mac, you're from Southwestern Ontario. Oh, okay. Talking about the LRCs, Rapido Trains mentioned these. I forget the manufacturer, but there was this strange little collector set of locomotives, and it seemed like it was like locomotives of the world or famous locomotives, and they actually did an LRC engine, and this came mounted onto a little stand with a little display case, and I think they're about, I think I got it for maybe $25 or $30. And so it's exactly N scale, and I understand that there's some modelers out there that have taken this and motorized them so that they could have a running LRC. I also know that there was some Shapeways LRC cabs or bodies that you could get and put on top of another powered body. But yeah, I got this a few years ago, and so I leave it in the yard as sort of an homage to the fact that they did exist. But I mean, I'm going to get my pre-order in very soon. I think in the live stream Jason mentioned they need like 1,200 pre-orders to make it a reality. And so I don't know. Del Prado, yes, Del Prado. I have the same model. So Jason said they need like 1,200 pre-orders or 1,400 pre-orders. And I don't know if that's a lot. Like, is there 1,200 craven foamers that can't wait to get one of these? Like, I have no notion of what the popularity is. Anyway, let's get the second coat of paint on this guy here. By June 15th, yes. So I have a couple months to get my pre-order in. But I think I'll do it anyway, or I'll lose interest. Mac Irvin, I'm thinking about ordering 1 or 2. Yeah, I'm thinking about at least 2. Good morning to Deep Run. Okay, so first coat of concrete is down. I'm going to add just a little more. I don't think so. The passenger cars will be popular, yes. Got mine ordered, trying to convince the wife for a second. I can't help in that way. I'm very fortunate that my lovely partner, she's very, very supportive of hobbies. Okay. I'm going to call that good enough in terms of a paint job. And I just realized I just accidentally broke the step a little bit. And yep, just wipe super glue with your bare finger. It's fine. Like that. And then hide it all with paint. Done. Okay. George McCormick, nice LRC. I remember passing Pickering, Durham region, Toronto, late 90s, early 80s. Oh, Bruce, you got the charger. Oh, goodness. I think I've probably mentioned my LRC story before. So for those who are familiar with the Southwestern Ontario area, I grew up in the country in Acton, Ontario. And Highway 7 ran alongside the tracks that Via Rail would use to go from Acton to Georgetown, etc. And so as a young age, from time to time, Highway 7 would run alongside the tracks. And more than once, you would be trying to catch up because the LRC would be doing, let's say, 90 kilometers an hour and you'd be doing 70, you're stuck in traffic. And so you'd watch the beautiful Via Rail LRC with every identical engine and car pass you. And that really left a big impression on me. And also there was a place, and I forget where it is, called Storybook Gardens. I don't even know if it's around anymore. And one time, my family, we got on the train to go to Storybook Gardens. And they gave you these folding LRC paper cars. And I remember putting it together, and they had like a hook and loop system so you could put them together. And I remember having one and I loved it. And then you grew up and things went away. And you know, that's what happens. But I went and saw that same paper thing actually in an antique store. And so since then, I've certainly always been obsessed with the LRCs, even though arguably it's one of the uglier engine passenger car combinations there is. Okay, so for anyone just joining in, I'll sort of do a quick recap here. So last week, I started building this Rick's out structure, and I repainted it this sort of decrepit green color. I chose the configuration I want. I've been working on the roofs. I did a little bit of basic weathering, and this is going to go on the layout, and I actually want to mount it onto a base. And so what I've done this morning then is I've created a base using some 1.5 millimeter basswood plywood that I just scrap laying around, and I've cut these two channels and filled it with a bit of ballast so that I have some ruddy flower beds for the front of this building. And so I've got a little step off of the one door. I've got these depressed so that the cars can drive out, one in the back. And so this is going to let me then, I'll be able to sort of fill these with like weeds, the sign, I'll have the sidewalk out front, and I think it just makes it look, it'll make it blend into the ground a little better. I'll be able to pick this up and set it down, and it'll have a clean edge so that I can always work on it. So I need to put a sign on it. I might add some graffiti to the one side, and then I have to cover it from a whole bunch of different vines and such. Good morning, Have Some. Good morning, Seattle. Let me see, Seattle. Is Seattle 3 hours? I mean, okay, Seattle is, I forget now, is it, are you 3 hours ahead? Is it 1 o'clock in the afternoon there? We'll figure it out. Anyway, so this is where we're at with this. Let's see. And good morning, JFan. So I've got the base on here. I wonder if face cam. See handsome face cam? Not necessarily better. 3 hours behind, thank you. That's what I was trying to say. And so yeah, that I think puts me in a good place. So what I'll do is I'm going to let this dry thoroughly. I'll give this a wash of India ink. I'm going to do a little more weathering on the building before I permanently attach it to this. I need to put some holes in here and some lighting. I'll probably just mount some sort of light in here, and I need to glaze the windows. And then what I can do is I can start working with this like a complete little model. I have an example. Let me be right back. And I've shown this one before, but this was a little garage. This was a Japanese kit that I found. And so again, I put a base on this. So I was able to add this sort of caged in area with like a bunch of zombies running around and some pallets. and it allows me to have the building on a bit of a defined edge so that I can set it on the layout and move it around. So it's not permanently installed in the layout, but the curbing helps give it a bit of an edge. So yeah, that'll be sort of a future state for this one, and then it'll go in front of the passenger terminal. Good morning, Willow Creek Brad. So there, this coffee is painfully cold. I am happy with the way that this platform has turned out. I think, I've said it before, these flower beds are going to be kind of fun to do. I've never thought about doing that before. And so yeah, start to weather it and get it taken care of. But you won't see this structure again for a while because I'm going to finish that up off camera on my own time, so to speak. And I will be starting in on the station kit this Thursday. And the first order of business there is trying to remodel the roof. And I'll go over that a bit more. So yeah, I think that that's probably a good place to close things out for this morning. I appreciate everyone hanging out this morning. It's always great to catch up with a bunch of people, like-minded people, early on a Sunday morning. I hope that everybody is going to have a great day. I'm going to do some chores now. I think I've earned myself some... I owe it to myself to get some things done around the house, but this worked out really well. So yeah, this Thursday I have a live stream. It's part of the Third Rail Thursday series where myself, Go Via or Go Home, Chris and Mark from M&M Rails pop on every Thursday, somewhere between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. And so this is the first Thursday of the month, which means I'm on deck. We'll start working on the station and I'll start wrecking the roof. Anyway, thanks again for everyone hanging out with me this morning. I hope everyone has a great day, and I'll see you next time.